director, Rob Paquette, and some friends of mine and other folks concerned, citizens, concerning the trade issues. We brought to your staff's attention February 23rd at our first meeting the threats from specifically the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the unconstitutionality of ISDS, which is a tribunal system. And I've seen you use Article 1, Section 8 to further an argument in your favor on the TPA, to push the Trade Promotion Authority, fast tracking. You're saying that Article 1, Section 8 is allowing Congress to do their job and oversee, but not be stripped from the trade and the decisions. But the trade agreements themselves have tribunals. And part of Article 1, Section 8 is no tribunal shall stand above our superior court. This is unconstitutional trade. So I'm asking you, like this gentleman, to give an answer today. Will you not support fast tracking trade deals that are unconstitutional, that have been going on in secret, and that I'm not even confident that you have had the chapters and the text in front of you, and to start a process of fast tracking and pushing forward trade on this type of level, it is unsovereign to us and every other 13 one of those nations' dreams. Because I know there's a Malaysian dream. I know there's this dream in all of these countries. Yes, we have an American dream. And in this trade issue, TPA, TISA, CETA, all of them, the TTIP, they threaten our sovereignty.
So I appreciate the question. I'll go to the short answer and then I'll go to the long answer. The short answer is I've just not made up my mind on this issue. On most every other issue that probably people ask me about, I'm pretty certain as to what I'm doing, this, and this. There's probably one or two issues that people ask me tonight. You know, hey, what are you going to do? How are you going to vote? And honestly, I've not decided how I'm going to vote.
Has our team been helpful providing you lots of information?
It is. And the argument, or the position, or whatever you want to call it, that you guys have presented is one that I'm familiar with because I have discussed this and debated this years ago, actually. Years ago when I first came into Congress on other trade issues. And I'm very concerned, on the one hand, about the constitutionality. And just to spend 10 seconds for the people who didn't all catch what she was saying is, so the Constitution is the sovereign, is the supreme law of the land, right? We have our own tribunals in this country, the Supreme Court on down, right? And so the position or the argument is can we abdicate or delegate that to another tribunal to make those decisions? And at some point, this is why I'm a little torn, at some point I lean that way and say, no, we shouldn't. We should remain sovereign on these matters. But just as you say that there's a Malaysian dream and this country dream and a Japan dream and something like that, they would make the argument that they too don't want to abdicate their sovereignty, but in order to enter into any sort of agreements as to how are you going to be dealing with trade issues and what have you, opening up their markets to us, because a lot of countries don't open up their markets to us. And so if we have a small manufacturer here in the county, they want to make widgets or whatever, and they want to ship it over to some of these other countries, the argument is they can't get into the other countries because they're blocked. And so you have trade deals to try to open up their markets, and we open up their markets, and then you have an agreement, a trade agreement. If I had my druthers, if I was king for the day, I would probably just enter into entirely bilateral trade agreements, and so then you would just simply be one country on one country. I'm not king for the day or any time. And so I'm trying to figure out how you work around that, because nobody would enter into any agreements. Nobody in Malaysia would enter into agreement, or Japan would enter into agreement, or any other country would enter into agreement with us if we were to then dictate to them, well, if there's a dispute with you, it has to come to a United States courts. Likewise, we would not enter into agreement with Malaysia. It says if we're in a dispute with them, they would have to go to a Malaysian court. So then the question is, if they're not going to enter an agreement with us for our courts, and if you're, vice versa, how do you actually, at the end of the day, enter into those things in a multilateral trade arrangement? And that's why I say I sort of debate this in my own head, and I debate it with the facts that I get from you, and that's not personally, but for the information that I get from you. So that's why I'm still sort of struggling with it.
The corporations could actually bring their case to this ISDS system and the tribunals. But if the people had a problem with that company bringing baby food tainted baby food from China in here, and the people had a problem with that, then we would have to go to China and work through that system. But they could take it to a tribunal and sue the taxpayers for not accepting the tainted for their estimated profit losses.
Right. So that's a problem. And so, and in the absence of that, not to go too deep into it, but the absence of that is you have the situation of when you don't have some sort of an agreement, whether it's this one or another one, on how to deal with that situation. And maybe this is not a great analogy, just popping into my head. It's like the situation with the plywood or whatever it was from China years ago, and so they were selling it over here through an agent. People bought the plywood. It was all moldy or something wrong with the plywood. I forget exactly what was wrong with it. And lots of condos put it in their buildings, and they had a mold problem. But then the question is, so there you have innocent people, regular people, wanting to bring the suit, and it's like, well, where do I bring the suit? There's no really agreement at that point with China that you could bring it into some international body or otherwise. You can't sue them over here because the only person that brought them over is some young, little business that has no assets whatsoever to go after. The company that you want to go after is actually back in China, so then you end up trying to bring that lawsuit for the billions of dollars, I think it was in the plywood situation, back in China, and of course there was no relief there because how is an American to prevail in China? So you needed, it would have seemed to me in that situation, is how do you resolve that if you can have an agreement as to how that innocent home builder, the purchaser, could deal with that, and that's part of the rub. That's why it's not just, it's not always, that's why I'm battling on that issue, but thanks. Back to the question,